Okay. Yeah, hi. Welcome back. So this is continuation for the session 2. So yesterday we left till understanding of the different kinds of methods and what is the protocol, IP port, and how the basic and subpath and all is designed. We didn't get time to discuss upon the request header, what is request body, what is the response header, response body, and standard status codes and body. So today, before we start the next session, that is session 3 on creating a new project, would like to actually understand the brief about these topics, and then we'll close this, and then we'll start with the new session. Okay. So yeah. So yesterday, from the discussion, what we have done, we created a small project. In this small project, we created some 2 flows. Okay, so one flow, we also understood that when we created this flow, the only thing that we added is we added a listener. And once the listener was added, we configured its connector configuration, we did it. Then we added a logger. And we created one more flow. This was for listing the students. This was for delete students. So here also, when we added the listener, we actually used the same configuration that was configured here. Along with that, we gave a new subpath. So if we try to understand this and try to write it over here, this is how it looks like. So HTTP, this is a get method. So here we have given a get method. If you go to advanced, and here if you see, it is a delete method. Okay. So we gave a method, we gave a protocol. Protocol is our HTTP here. Okay.
Okay.
So these are actually the common that we kept it as a global configuration, and we kept it in the common. So if you see, this is my protocol, IP, port, student. This is the base path that I have given here, student. On in front of that, depending upon my requirement, we have actually added the type of subpath. It can be a list or delete, depending on my requirement. Okay. So in this, what we have to understand is now if we have to send this or use this is the listener that once we deploy this is the listener that will be listening. So if we want to send a request to this, okay. So in that case, we'll be using, usually we can use any of the tool that's available, but most of the times we use the um, Postman. So in the Postman, if you see, if I have to send a request to this method, this API, what we'll do, we'll give the method get. We have selected get. HTTP, this is a local host 8081, 8081. Then our URL is student /list. Okay. So now where does the request header and request body come into picture here? Now, if you click on the send, once you deploy the project and if you click on the send, so the request would come here, and it will perform the action, whatever we have defined it. So here it is only a logger is printed. So it will just print a log for timing. Rakesh, I think maybe you can mute it. It is actually making noise. Thanks, sir. Okay. So it will come and start printing over here. While sending, now you can see something called headers here. So in the request header, what and all we can do, this is if we add something like this list, and you want to actually list for some particular student ID, you may give his ID as A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so this is called as your URA parameter. Okay, so in the URA parameter, how do you define it? We give it as a slash and give the parameter ID here. So this is how you actually give the URA parameter. We will understand in detail what is URA parameter and all in the future discussions. For now, time being, you can see that if you have to list a single student ID, you can send like this as a URA parameter. And if you want to, if we have to add the same thing in the query parameter, we can give a key as student ID, and whatever you gave here, that value can be given. Rakesh, are you muted, Rakesh?
No, bhai.
Can you please mute? Our background noise बहुत आ रहा है. Thanks, sir. Anytime if you have any doubts, no, Rakesh, you can please unmute and stop me there itself. Okay. Yeah. So in the request header, what and all things you can do? You can send a URI parameter. You can send a query parameter. How? Just this is just an example how to send a query parameter, how to send a URI parameter. You can add headers also. What kind of a header? Sometimes the URI may needs your authorization. So you what do? You send an authorization and a key with it. Okay, so only with this authorization it will be able to give you a response, because all the APIs, anyone hitting the API should not be given the response, right? So we add some security level authorizations. Sometimes we send maybe a department, we can say it as a department is a department code, we can see 666. So to that department it will go and search for the student ID. So any information as such we have to send. If the information is a minimum or a smaller one, we send it either through params, that is this is nothing but a query parameter, or through URI parameter, or through headers. Okay, and authorization also. This itself is one topic for discussion. For time being, we'll understand this part. Okay, so these are nothing but our request headers. So when I say request headers, we have to send a request header. That means these are the things that should come to our mind. Either it can be URI parameter or query parameter, or it can be header. Along with the request header, we have request body. So sometimes what do we do when the information has to be sent is little bigger than this, then we actually select it here as a body. Maybe you can see we have selected raw and JSON, and we have sent some JSON here. This is the format, data is in JSON. This is the array of object. What is array, what is object, we will discuss it later. Right now you can understand that it has three objects: object 1, object 2, and object 3. It is in a square bracket, that's why we are calling it as an array. It is an array of 3 objects. If you want to make it in even more simple for understanding, what we can do, we can send just one object. Okay, and I will say I will send student name here as John. Okay, so if we have to send a data like this from the body, we can send it in JSON or XML. Okay, so in as a part of request header, we have query parameter, we have URI parameter, we have headers, and as a part of request body, as a part of request body, we can either send it through our JSON or through XML. Okay, now what will happen with the what we have what is this response header and response body? So once you send a request to this API, okay, so let me try to put it in a pictorial, more understanding way. Okay, so here is a front end. This is a front end UI screen. Okay, so from front end UI screen, what user will do? User will input all the details. Maybe how you might have seen how the passport checks and all they happen, right? They put your first name, last name, and click on check. So similarly, something like this check, they will input all the UI. Then they will hit internally, that will hit our API. I'm calling this as a get API for reference. Okay. So when we are getting a request to get API, what and all we are getting? We are getting our request header. We are getting a request header, as well as we are getting request body. Also we are getting request body. So with this requested and request body, what this API do? It will perform the action or the business that we have defined over here. Once the business is completed, it will actually give back the response. Okay. So when this will give the response, even this response will come up with the response header and response body. Okay. So this response body is nothing but we can only define what is that message. Okay. Similarly, how we have defined while sending the body, we define the JSON. So in our business, this is our business logic, what we want to send. we can either send it in a JSON or XML, anything that we want it. Okay, so how we are sending it here also. JSON XML. Similarly, we can send the business logic output that as our response. And how about the header? Header usually consists of two things. One is your status code and status message. Okay, this is very important. Even before this logic is sent, just by understanding the status code and status message, this will help us to understand whether the request that we sent has been successfully responded or no. Okay, so in case we have sent the request to this API and this API is down, so we will get a different status code and different status message for that. Suppose it is all working fine, a happy path, you send a request, you get a response. It will have its own status code and status message. Okay, and imagine there is a case where the request has gone, but there is some problem when API is working. So it will send, means in the API business logic, you are trying to connect some XYZ system and that system is down. In that case, it will give a different status code and status message. Okay, so the status code and status message helps us to identify whether the response that you have received, whether that is a success or a failure, or it is a client level failure, or it is a server level failure. Those information will be that would be understood by the one who is listening over here, the waiting for the response. Okay, so the very frequently used is we use 200, which means that is okay. 200 status code means we that is an okay for us. Okay, that is how the response would be shared. And there is the 400, which is usually client error. Okay, and 500 is internal server error. Okay, this is very famous one, 404, page not found. We actually add some customized error codes also. Maybe sometimes during the flow I have used 401. Okay, I have used 402, and I have defined a customized message also for that. Okay, similarly, so this will how the benefit that we have is, we will say that if sometimes even if the system is down and still it gives a response, it may give me 401. So the one who is listening here, for him actually the request has gone, but there is some issue with the third party system. So in that case, what we would do is sometimes we try to accept 200, 400, 401 and 402 also. Only if it is a 500, we say it's the request has failed. Okay, because here they might have handled it in the error condition, so that even if it has failed, after some time it will get triggered through either a scheduler or through error handling. It would have gone and written in some message queues, and it will be run over a period. Okay, so now you understood what is the request header and what is the response header and response status code and message. Okay, so I felt this was important to understand what we are getting here, status code and message, before we start our first API. Okay, any questions here who has joined? So please let me know if you have any questions on here. This status code and message on the Postman, you will get it in this response section. You will get it over here. So once we create a project here, that time we will see it. Actually, we will see the success path for now. The failures and all these things over a period while developing, we can see that. Please let me know if you have any questions over here.
Plus, how can we add new error codes?
Sorry?
How can we add new error codes, customized ones?
New error codes. Okay, actually good question. So at this here, when we start developing the flow, right? So during the flow, what we do, it might be at this basic level, it may look little complex, but just try to understand what we might be doing while during some flows and all, we will try to do that in the future. Okay, so we will customize and write a status code. overflow. We will imagine there is a validation if this is a string. If it is not a string, then immediately I will set the status code equals to 400 and my status message is this. So, and I will make this listener that message, we have an option for that also. Okay, to read the responses. Here you have a response, error response, what you want to read it. Okay, and what is the status code that you have to read. So this will take one session separately on how I can define the status code and reason phrase, that is nothing but our status message, and same thing has to be responded by our listener. Okay, for now you can see it as, we add it as a transform message or a variable, and we set the code there. Once we set the code there, we make this listener to read that. Once it listens, it will respond back. Okay, so by default, these are the APIs, or this default will come when we have to do, because this is a date. Most of the times you will actually have to configure few customized error codes and all. So it will be done. I think for now I answered you. Or when doing the practical, we'll take one session for this only. How shall we
Okay.
create a customized code and make the listener and see that code also?
Okay. Sure. Thanks.
Any other questions, Rakesh?
As of now, that's thank you.
Okay. Then I will stop this session. We'll start with the next one. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for that. Bye bye.
Thanks.